Welcome back to Living with a Classic. I'm here in my daily driver, my 1975 XJ6. Been taking this thing on some longer trips. You saw one of them when we took this to the first car show I've been to in years, and the first car show of this car. And things have been going well, except for two little things. One is an oil leak that's gotten pretty bad to the point that I just want to fix it now. And the second one being, after doing a couple of hard stops on the highway, there's a lot of traffic where I was going and people were not driving well, so I had to do some panic braking. I noticed that the rear brakes dragging a little bit on one of the front ones. And I remember I haven't replaced the brake hoses on this car. So we're hoping it's that. I'm going to replace those. I have a set laying around. And I'm going to see if we can, push all the pistons in, see that everything moves nicely. Hopefully that's fine. Then there's an oil leak up front. The right-hand cam cover gasket is leaking really badly. And I don't have one because I wasn't planning on doing that now, but I just noticed that my front cross member is just covered in oil. So it doesn't really like long trips, it's just pouring out oil. So I do have some gasket makers, some silicone, so I'm going to make a gasket. It's going to be temporary because at some point I'm going to rip it all off and check the tappets and all that, but not right now because it is around lunchtime today on a Friday, and tomorrow morning I'm going to a car show with this car, hopefully. So let's see if we can get this going. I'll show you what we're going to work on. Hopefully get this done pretty quickly, and hopefully we can go for a test drive later tonight. Got the car up in the air, and a couple days ago I sprayed all of the fittings for the hoses with some penetrating fluid, so they should come off. Hope so. We got two hoses up front, one in the rear, and then so this is the leak. So whoever did that cam cover gasket last did not do a good job because it's sticking out here and there is a hole. So it's leaking under here basically only, and then it's gathering on the underside of the cylinder head and just running down along the block. And let me see if I can move that light for you guys. It is just coating the cross member and everything in oil. So first thing, we're gonna rip this off. So we'll just take off all of these cables. Luckily, on an XK engine, it's very easy to get all of this off. So this should be pretty quick. I checked on the gasket material I have at home. It is 24 hours curing, but within 2 hours, you're supposed to be able to use the engine. So if I let this sit for a little longer than that, I should be confident in doing this. So we're gonna get all this off and, start from the inside, work my way in. Get this off, see what the gasket looks like. See if I'm gonna reuse it just with gasket material on it or just use gasket material. Don't have anything at home, but we're gonna make the best of it. Should all be loose now. Let's see if I can get this one-handed. There we go. And we can obviously see what's leaking there. Gasket is split there, and it is not at all in place. So that is that's strange. Never seen anything like that before, but very clean looking inside this engine. Makes sense, it is pretty newly rebuilt, so not an issue there. And you got that special seal back there, which still feels pretty good. They had a little bit of sealant on there, I see, but let's try and get this off. There we go. Yeah, split and broken. I'm gonna get the rest of this off, clean off this whole area, and then I think the easiest, wonder if it's easiest, probably easy to put the silicone on there. So clean off both of these, put the silicone on there, follow instructions, tighten all this back down. And I mean, it shouldn't be worse. You can see the amount of oil there. I hope it's just, that's been pouring out pretty well. Let's see the chain, everything feels all right. I do plan, like I said, the whole thing of the chain is a tiny bit loose. The tappets are a little bit too far open for my liking, but I'm not gonna do that right now because that always turns into quite a big job, removing camshafts and all of that. But at that point I will be replacing both sides with the correct gaskets. But this is just, having to get, last bit of emergency. But we can see that we have good oil supply up here, because you see the oil is pretty much all the way up to here. So good oil supply, so that's not an issue at all. And the cams and everything look absolutely fantastic. All right, just a couple minutes later, I cleaned everything off. That went really quickly. Put on some of that gasket material and just laid it on flat. Instructions say to put the two sides together immediately and then tighten it down loosely, and within an hour tighten it down fully. So that's what I'm going to do. I've just cleaned off these little washers. If I was doing this properly, I'd have new ones or I'd heat these up. But what I'm going to do is put some Hylimer blue on these just so they don't leak, and yeah, that should be fine. Like I said, not perfect, but I just don't want to cover the ground in oil. Last car show I went to, when it was raining, there was a little bit of a rainbow under my car, and don't want that. Plus, it's running down the front as well, I think, so it looks like a front main seal, because that's sort of where it's gathering and dropping down. So I really just want to clean off and make sure it's not a front main seal, because that's a little bit more of an annoying job to do. But let me get some Hylimer blue. I'm just going to dab a little bit around here, put these down, slowly tighten all this down. I'll set my timer for an hour while we wait for this to cure a little bit and tighten it down. And while we'll do that, I've already started to remove the wheel on this side, and we're going to replace these brake lines. They are definitely not original, but I don't know how old they are, so it's a good thing to replace them now that I'm putting a lot more miles on this car. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, unfortunately, what I had at home was red, so you're going to see it, but at least it's probably not going to leak. It did sort of start curing or vulcanizing really quickly, but on the back, I made a little bit of a mess at first, but it's nice now. I used some thinner just to get it off, and that doesn't look too bad. You can see a little bit in the corner somewhere, a little bit down there, but I just don't want it to leak. So we'll set a timer for an hour, and then we'll tighten it down after that. But now, can we look at the brakes here? I'm going to set up some lights, but just let me get the flashlight on my phone. And it's really, really straightforward. The way I like to do it is I clamp this hose, like clamp it with anything because it doesn't, I'm not using it. And then I will quickly remove it from here, put a new hose onto the caliper, quickly remove it there, put the new hose on there, and then I will spill the smallest amount. But there is a trick. Get some cellophane from your kitchen, put it on top of the, get the lid off, put it on top over there, screw the lid on, and you get a pretty airtight seal, and that will, have a little bit of vacuum, and then you won't lose too much fluid, but still keep a track of that so you don't have to bleed the whole master cylinder and everything again. So this is what I mean, that you can just get a piece of plastic here, put it over. It's a little more difficult on this style because you have that low fluid sensor, but you can make a little bit of an incision for that. And I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but every little bit helps. Tighten that tight. Okay, not saying any fluid's going to come out, but it's going to help a little bit. Let's go over to the other side and we'll start with the hoses over there. Then we'll do the one on this side, and then I'll do the rear. Step one in anything like this is, of course, check that you can crack the bleed nipple, because otherwise the whole thing is pointless. One thing that's good to know that came up pretty easily. I can't remember the exact year by heart, but pretty early in the Series 2 production, so 73, 74, something like that, brakes on Jags got switched to metric. So everything's metric on these cars. You see it's 11mm for that. These are 13, and the hoses are 15, so that is good to know. So what we're going to do is just take my 15, hold on to the bottom of that hose there, and get that on there. Maybe I need to go like this. There we go. Oh yeah, that is moving. But as you see, the brake line is moving at the same time. That is because there is a little bit under seal there. So see if we can get that off a bit and see. Do not want to break that line. Okay, I'm going to grab something to hold onto the line a little bit with and see if we can get this fitting to turn without the line. Alright, that has not helped so far. Someone has replaced this line in the past with a soft copper line. Not an issue usually, but it's a little bit on the stuck side. This line goes down to the caliper over here on the other side, so I'm going to see if I can get it off down there. It's going to be a little bit too tight to film, and if I can get this whole thing in the vise and then sort of knock this back and get it to turn. That's really the only solution I can think of right now, but already leaking a little bit of brake fluid because I have cracked this loose. So we're going to find somewhere on here to clamp this down and just try and there we go. Try and minimize the leakage. So I'm going to try that and I'll report back in a little bit. Alright, I gave it one more chance, and what I did was I grabbed some pliers and I bent this up a bit because I noticed it was bent down, and wouldn't you know, it turns freely now. So at least it does for a couple turns. I haven't tried anymore, but that seems to have done the trick, which is great because I do not have time to replace any brake lines today. Okay, that is off. We can move that a little bit to the side, and then we'll grab, I think that one should be 15 as well, or possibly bigger. Yep, alright, that seems to be 17, and that one is 15, so not going that well. I'm going to grab an impact. All right, grab an impact, and I have to use my extension cord for that. So I'm going to try and set up this light so you guys can at least see a tiny bit. And 15 on there. And an impact on here. And there we go. And that did the trick. And now we don't need that anymore. Got the light, and we will remove this down. And one thing I'm noticing, there's supposed to be a washer there, which is gone. Yeah, it's completely gone. So I'm gonna see, I don't have a locking washer like that, but I may have just a normal plain washer, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But we're just gonna double check that I have the correct brake hoses. Yep, I do. All right, I'm gonna get a washer. I'll put this on, but I won't tighten it down so I can still move everything around a bit. And then we'll get that one off. Quickly put that in, not spill too much brake fluid. And then it's just the same on the other side. I'll do that and then I'll show you guys what it's like in the back. I realized I got ahead of myself a little bit. I forgot to show you guys down here where you need to loosen, of course, the other end of the hose. So you see, kind of hard to see probably, but right down there, it's the same type of fitting. So you just undo that and yeah, it's exactly the same. So now the whole hose is new, but what I want to do now is crack the bleed nipple and just see that the pads move freely back into place. And then maybe we'll pull the pins out and grease them, but we'll just see how easily everything moves back into place. And one reason I also want to do that is it's always a good idea to let gravity bleed a little bit, because I know I got fluid all the way up here because it was leaking until I tightened it, and it's starting to get a little bit of fluid out here already. So that's a great thing. And if you guys remember, I did rebuild the master cylinder when I got this thing back on the road over 2 years ago now. But it's moving. Now you see, it's actually squirting fluid, so that seems pretty good. These two, I mean, they're moving as well, but it wasn't as easy to push it on that side. Let me see if it's just the way I'm doing it. Yeah, I can feel it moving. And everything's replaced on this side as well. And on both sides, I had the pads out and I manually just pushed in the pistons. And they all moved very nicely on this side. On the other side, one was stuck, but I got it to move in a little bit. Then I pushed it out by pushing on the brake pedal, in and out a couple times, and now that thing is moving freely as well. So all pistons out of all 8, one was stuck. And now they're all really nice and greased, working well. So now I'm going to move a light over there. I'm going to clean up a little bit, go under, and we'll replace the rear brake line and see what the rear brakes are like. I've been under here a little while, and you know, it's very, very tight to film. Plus, we've been over this many times with the XJ6 and other cars. Of course, we have the inboard brakes back here, and everything is really pretty good actually back here. So I haven't touched the brake hose yet, and all I did was I just removed the pins, and I just want to check that if I just pushed a little bit with some channel locks right here and here. Yeah, all the pistons have moved very, very freely and all of that. So it's not a caliper issue back here. That is definitely a brake hose issue. The brake hose is, let me see if I can show you guys. The brake hose is right over there. You can see. So I'm going to spray that a little bit more. Maybe give it some heat, get that off, put a new one on, and then move this light again. There we go. Then it's just a matter of bleeding everything. I'm not sure. I may pull these out. I don't know. Everything is moving really, really nicely back here. So I don't think I see any issue doing that. I'm going to put the pins back in and remove that. And then it's just on to bleeding everything, and then a test drive. A fiddly while later, and there's a new hose in place there. So you can just clean off the area. But that went pretty well. It's just that, once again, it's pretty rusty along the hose, and then it was hard to get those nuts off. And it's very tight, especially up there. But that's done. And yeah, I just put the pins back in here, greased everything up. Everything's sliding and moving nicely. So next thing is to bleed the brakes. I'm going to get my lovely assistant, my wife, to help me out do that. And well, you guys know how to bleed brakes, so I'll have to show you that. We'll do that, and then a little bit later, I will go for a test drive, and hopefully we don't have any oil leaks, and the brakes are fine. out here on a test drive now. It's starting to be pretty late on a Friday evening, so I offered to go and get some takeaway for my wife and I thought, I'll take the XJ6, see how it goes. My lovely wife helped me bleed the brakes, and pedal feels really good. I think those brake hoses were pretty old because the pedal hasn't felt this good. And that's always been one thing about this car, that compared to other XJs I've had, this one's had a very firm brake pedal. But this has also been the only XJ I've had with a rebuilt master cylinder. But this brake pedal is still pretty firm, but it's I don't know, it feels good. So we got a tiny bit of straight road up here, and I am just, after this turn here, I'm just going to let go of the wheel. I'm not going very fast, about 40-50 kilometers an hour, and we're just going to see if it stops nice and straight. And hand off the wheel. Yeah, that feels really good. And then a little bit later, I am gonna just, when we're up to speed on a more of a straight road, I'm gonna knock it into neutral and just coast and see that I don't, instantly lose speed. And that's a good sign of brake dragging. But so far feels good. I also don't have the front hubcaps on, just so I can more easily feel the hub, feel if it's any warmth or anything. So far the brakes are feeling really great. And you may be wondering about car shows. Yes, I'm going to 2 car shows tomorrow, and I decided to take this one. Well, I really want this one at the second car show, and that's why. It's an open house, first at English Car Care, where I've been with the Range Rover once, and I bought a lot of parts there. He breaks lots of old Jags sometimes. It's good to get some used parts. So he has a bit of a summer party, so I'm going to that in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I am going to another summer party at a Jag specialist called Joe's Garage, and it's really, really nearby. And I've been asked by them to be the MC for their whole event, and they have a pretty big event with, I think they have a stage, and I was going to have a wireless mic and lots of different events and walking around. And I said, sure, why not? And they asked me if I could show up in one of my projects. And I thought, this is the first project car on the channel, so we'll bring this one. And that's why I want to fix these little things, because, well, if people are going to look at the car, I don't want a massive puddle of oil underneath it. And of course, I don't want the brakes to be on, because it is about an hour away. So it's a bit of a long drive on the highway. But only thing I can see now is the brake warning light went on a little bit there. But the switch in this car is really bad. Sometimes it warns when the fluid isn't low. But when I get to my destination, I'm of course going to check. But so far, brakes feel good. Right there, when I let go of them, they really, the car really did coast pretty nicely. But I'm going to get up to speed here, and then when we are... Alright, this is pretty flat here. I'm doing 60 kilometers an hour. Pop into neutral. And 59. 55. Alright, we don't have any dragging brakes. That's really good. Okay, I'm gonna get to my destination, pick up some food, and then I'll let you guys know how the brake situation is on the way back. If the fluid level, if that's just a sensor being kind of funny, which it can be sometimes, or if we actually have lost any fluid. I picked up the takeaway, and now the car smells amazing. On my way back, and I parked in 2 places, and I haven't seen any drips on the ground. I checked over, under the around the engine where the brake line's, what I can see, and can't see any leaks so far. The level hasn't changed; it's still on the max. And I took off the lid and put it back on, and well, it hasn't come on again, the warning light. So it can be a little bit finicky sometimes. It happened last time I drove it as well, and then I just sort of wiggled a bit and it stopped. But otherwise, I'm very happy with how the brake pedal feels. It feels just as I think it should in one of these. So it feels just like my XJ12 and most other cars. And it was always a little bit on the firm side on this car. Like some people, it's hard to describe, because I know I'm going to get a comment someone's saying, if your brake pedal's soft, you got air in the system. That's not what I mean. I don't mean a soft pedal like that. But I mean, this thing was firm, as in it didn't feel like the brake servo was doing anything. But yeah, and the brake pedal would go down if you turn on the engine with the, so you knew the servo was doing something, but now it feels a lot better. So hopefully the brakes will be fine for a while. I don't feel like dropping the IRS on this car in a long time, because I got 2 or 3 other cars to drop IRSs on pretty soon. I got my XJ6, then I've got the 66S type, and I've got 1 or 2 customer cars to drop IRSs on as well. So this car, I would like for it to stay in place for now. But yeah, it's time to go home, eat, rest a little bit, see if I wash the car tonight or if I do that early tomorrow morning. I'm going to leave my house at about 9, so it's not that early, but when you have kids and everything and you gotta take care of a ton of things before that, it does feel sort of early, at least for on a Saturday. Anyway, so let me know in the comments down below, do you want to see a video of the car shows? I think it'll be pretty fun. One's going to be just British cars and one's going to be just Jags. So let me know if you want to see that in the comments down below. Oh yeah, and the oil leak seems to be dry so far. So fingers crossed that that's going to stay good. And I don't like the way it looks with the sealer, but it's just temporary. I just don't want it to leak. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Until next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.